Hello, and welcome to Time Between Times storytelling with me, Owen Staton. Outside the sun is scorching. Outside the day is bright. But in here, it is a time for stories. It is the time between times, the time when it is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. So thin that for just a few moments it can reach into our world. And for a few moments we can reach into theirs. Now is the time of stories. Now is the time that people see lights in the sky. Now is the time that people see fairies. And now is the time that people see ghosts. So even though it's scorching and hot, sit back, relax. Pretend that you are deep in the forest. The sun is starting to set, the moon is starting to rise. The time between times is upon us. Around you see the friendly faces of those who want stories. They have left behind their modern trappings, their cares and their worries, and they sit back and relax and listen to tales that are told. Today, I have two tales that happened on the same night long ago in 1875 in the county of Glamorganshire, in a place called Pwll the Witch's Pond. But we are not talking about witches this week. We are talking about the Cwn Annwn, the hounds of the other world. It was long known that the Cwn Annwn were the dark hounds of death. You would hear them, you would see them out the corner of your eye, and they were prophets of doom. These days, they are not seen or heard or smelt often. But if they are, it becomes a very, very hard time for the person. Many years ago, in Pwll there was an old chapel. Sides were covered in moss and it nestled in the side of the hills. But every Sunday morning as the sun was rising, it was packed with those who had come to worship. And Maggie Gwyn was taken there by her father, Ivor. As they came to the doorway, Ivor said to her, "Enjoy the service. I must go for now, but I will pick you up at the end." And Ivor went off to meet with some friends while Maggie attended chapel. She walked into the chapel, her feet clip-clopping on the old wooden floor. It was packed with those who had come to worship, and she saw many friends she knew well. She sat down on one of the wooden pews next to her friend Nia Jones, and they sang hymns and enjoyed themselves. As the service came to an end, she walked to the old wooden door, but there was no sign of Ivor. Nia said, "Where is your father?" "I don't know," said Maggie. "He said he would meet me here." "Don't worry, I will walk you home," said Nia. So they walked home down the twisting paths, back to Maggie's house, through the forest, past the pond, and there into the meadows. When suddenly Maggie looked up and turned to Nia and said, "Look at that dog. It's looking right at me." "I can't see a dog," said Nia. "What are you talking about? Look over there. It's as dark as night, with bright red eyes." Nia felt Maggie stiffen, and sweat started to fall down her brow. "Well, let us hurry along the path, although I can't see anything." They made their way down the twisting path until Nia's house could be seen. All the time Nia looked behind her and could see the dog walking along the twisting path, just out of range, just almost out of sight, but still there, until she came to the doorway of her house. "Do you want me to come in?" said Nia. "No, go home, but watch the road, for the hound is on the road." Although she could see nothing, Nia ran back to her house. Maggie went inside, sat at the table, started to boil a pot of tea. She closed the door. But around the house, she could hear a hound sniffing and walking and scratching at the doors and the windows. This went on until the sun was at its zenith, and still she could hear the hound, when suddenly, and without warning, it stopped. Not a minute had passed before there was a knocking at the door, an urgent knocking at the door. And she opened it to find one of her father's friends, who had been crying. And he turned to her and said, "Maggie, this morning your father took a fall, landed heavily, and has sadly died. I'm sorry I'm the one who has to tell you." Strangely, on the same day, not far from there, a huntsman called Stephen Rees, who was cruel and callous and did not look after his hounds, left Pwllrach, having not fed his dogs for 3 days. He walked off, not to go to capel or chapel, but to go to the pub. He drank till he felt merry and returned home. But as he did so, he heard a howl and a cry seeming to come from the sky. "Tally-ho! Tally-ho!" followed by the howls of dogs. Though frightened, drink had boldened him, and he walked towards his house. But just when he could see his kennels, just when he could see his home, he heard the cry in the sky again, "Tally-ho! Tally-ho!" So he turned, capped his voice, and cried to the sky, "Tally-ho! Tally-ho!" As soon as the words had left his lips, he regretted it, as the door to the kennels burst open, and his hounds rushed forward, crazed by hunger, and savaged him till he fell to the ground, dead. The people of Pwllrach, beautiful though it is, learned to fear the sounds of the Cwn Annwn, learned to fear the hounds of Annwn, and all over Wales, their cries of dread, their cries of horror are feared by all. So even on this sunny day, this dark tale must be told. So beware when you're out walking, that you do not see, smell or hear the Cwn Annwn. And if you do, always turn round and make a prayer and hope that they are powerless, or they have come from somewhere else and not you. For many years afterwards, the cries of the huntsman could be heard. And poor old Maggie Gwyn, she always feared the sniffing at her door, knowing that it meant the death of her father. Whew. That was dark and that was scary. That is the tales of the Cwn Annwn alike. So even on the sunniest days, darkest tales can do us good. Do not be feared, for we are safe at the time between times. And Wales is a beautiful place to visit at all times. If you want to hear more stories, I now have an audio podcast called Time Between Times Storytelling. You can find that wherever you find your podcasts, and I would be very grateful if you were to download it. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you wish to hear more tales. I'll do one a week, every week, so we can escape our modern trappings and sit back and enjoy a tale at the time between times. Please look after yourself. Please be kind. Please take care of your friends and your family. These are difficult days, but we can be happy when we have traditional tales to keep us going. Diolch yn fawr am gwrando. Thank you very, very much for listening. Please leave a nice comment. And please take care of yourself. Diolch yn fawr. Goodbye.